Well, hello to you guys, and welcome to another episode of Learning How to Program. Well, in the latest video, we discussed what is loop and what does it, but we want to be more specific in this episode about loops. Well, this is our algorithm for the previous session, which showed the odd and even numbers from 1 up to 100, I believe. And this is a simple loop because we are doing things and then we go back to a step that prevent us to hitting finish, but we eventually have to see the finish line, and an algorithm must finish, and if algorithm doesn't finish, the algorithm is incomplete, and it has to have a finish point. So but at a loop, we're gonna delay that finish line. We're gonna uh, go back and redo some steps before we hit finish. So basically speaking, a loop has two parts. Where is my pen? Yeah, that's it. The first part, I'm gonna highlight it with another color. Probably red. Yeah, that's not gonna do it. We start from this if, and if it was yes or no, we're gonna print something, and then we're gonna hit another if, and this is going to be our loop part. Yeah, this is our loop. These 5 steps. My bad. This 5 step is actually our loop. A loop has 2 sections actually. Black is started and power goes out. Normal day in Iran. So basically speaking, I said loops are made of 2 parts. First part is the instruction that we do in the loop. In this case, these are the instruction that we're doing here. Come on. Yeah. Those are our instructions. No, I want just like that. And the latest part is our whatever you say is our condition. So while n is less than 100, we're gonna do that. So the first keyword that we're gonna learn in Python is while, as you might notice. So you're gonna say while something, do these things. Come on, do these things. So while is our keyword, this part is our condition, and the rest is our instruction set. So let's write a few code about this algorithm at least. Let's delete these chunks. Alright. For the coding tool, you can use anything you want, but I'm gonna use Visual Studio Code, which is a basic tool actually. So what I'm gonna do is open a Python file, and at the beginning we don't have anything to say. From beginning, this start part here. basically our start point in our Python code is just obvious. Actually, our finish line too, because we are writing a script and it has a beginning and an ending part. For example, if I write something blah blah blah, I know I have to start from this line, and this line is the end of the script. So this is really specific, so we don't have to write our start and finish line. So another basic thing that is I have to save it somewhere. I'm gonna save it on my desktop. Yep, that's it. And yep, let's talk a bit about syntax. Syntax is the way that you are writing this code. Syntax is like grammar. You have to apply it to your text so that Python can read your text and understand what you mean. That is the simplest explanation about syntaxes. So, in Python, we're gonna use, nothing special. If you want to add an if, you say if, and your condition is less than 100, blah blah. This is very straightforward, but there are some lines that they don't have to run. You write them, but they are just guide or notes or something like that. We call it comments. And for commenting, there are two ways in Python. First one is add a sharp at the beginning of the line, and then whatever you write is just a comment. It doesn't count, it doesn't round, and nothing. If I run this, it's nothing, not even a syntax error, because it's comment, it's nothing. And another way to comment is to type three quotations, open and close, and between those you can write as much as you want. So that's an area of commenting, and this is a single line comment. I can go to the next line, but the next line is not comment. If I run this, it has an error because CSDVF, which is this line, whatever it is, blah blah blah, is not defined. So it cannot recognize that. But if I remove that, all of the rest are okay, because those are comments, and comments are not runnable. So I can clear my console, and let's go back and write some codes. So for the start and finish line, you don't have to write it, but you can just comment it whatever you want, which way you prefer. I prefer not to do anything. I mean, blank start is fine for me, and I'm gonna go with it. So the next step is get something from user, read something from input. So for that, in Python, we use input function. And since it's a function, you have to put a parenthesis in front of it, because it's function. We're gonna talk about them later, but right now you can just memorize it. That input needs a parenthesis. And if I run that, it's waiting for me. It doesn't immediately finish. It doesn't immediately finish. It's waiting for me, basically. It needs me to write something here. For example, I write this blah blah blah, and I hit enter, and yep, that's it. My program has been finished now, because I just said get something from user input, and that's it. Nothing else, nothing more. I can just put it in some variables. Variables are these letters that we used here, n or whatever we have discussed before. I'm gonna say it's number, number equals to input, whatever input says, whatever the user has written in the command line, or wherever it has written. There are multiple ways to give some inputs to the program. Simply, we are gonna use the command line right now, which is a bit easy, and it's for default of the VS Code. You don't have to install anything more. So if I run this again, it still waits me to write something. Alright, I hit enter and it finishes, because I put my input inside in number, but I didn't do anything else. So we hit finish line. We have an abstract start and finish line at the beginning and the end of our script, which Python knows where it is, and when it hit finish, and it goes out from my program. So let's do something else. For example, if I run this, you can see that it's a black blank screen with white blinking cursor, and it doesn't say anything. Where the hell am I know? Where should I know what should I type here? So you can add a prompt here. By Control C, you can interrupt the program and it goes out. I use that, Control plus C, Control and the letter C. You can use a prompt for input in here. For example, enter a number and the double dot and maybe some spacing here. So when I run this, it writes the prompt here, enter a number, and then waits for something that I input. That would be more, that's more appropriate. Let's write these prompts since now on. And if I write numbers, well, it it moves it to number and stores it there. Alright, so let's a bit type about data types. Data types are the kind of data we pass in a variable. For example, it could be a number, but numbers are two-part in Python. Let's delete those. That's gonna take a while. But forgive me because I don't have a better things to do. Alright. What was I talking about? Yeah, data types. Numbers. I can type. Where's my typing to? Number could be an integer, or come on, numbers are two groups in Python. First group are integers, which means integer, which simply means that they don't have a decimal pointer and stuff like that. For example, you can say 1 is integer, alright, 2 is also integer, 3 is also integer, whatever you wanna write is integer, but 2.6 is not integer because it has point, it has a decimal value, so this is not integer. So what if it wanted to be a non-integer number? So in that case, we could use our second type of numbers, we call them floats, or simply float. And the name float comes from the floating pointer, which is a mechanism to store a decimal number in binary. So we're gonna use that. There is another type called double, which is also a decimal number, but it has double the capacity of the actual float, I believe. The float is not able to store some numbers out of a range, but the double has double that range. I mean, this can cover all of our routine things, but if you want any bigger number, you can just use something like that, your own data type or something like that. Yes, of course, you can use your data type. You can define a data type, but right now these are fine for us. So that is for numbers. There are some other data types like booleans. Booleans are let's write them. Booleans are only two values. Come on. A boolean could be true or false. Nothing else, nothing more. It could be a true or false. That's it. Could be true or false. It can be used for our condition because the condition must be true or false. For example, in this scenario, this operand returns a boolean, which is true or false. If it was true, do this. If it was false, do another thing. And what's the next thing is string. String is a composite type of characters. For example, any text is a string. Just remember this. Any text is a string. That's it. That's the simple explanation I can give you. And the last thing is a character. We just call it char. And actually, character, it's it's self-explanatory. It gives it away, its nature. So that's kind of the thing. A character, whatever thing you can write in your keyboard, it's a character, but one single character. You cannot type two characters in one variable that is defined as characters. If you want to, you can just define a string. You can store as many characters as you want. But what about our scenario here? You can always see the type of variable by typing type and then passing the variable. It just returns the type. But if I run it, if I enter a number here, it doesn't say anything because we haven't printed anything on the screen. If you want to print something, you can just use print command. This is print type of number, because all of these are a function. They need parentheses. Print is function, input is function, type is a function. So functions need parentheses, and there they have it. I'm gonna input something else, and it says it's a class of string because the input returns a string, and I wrote something that is defined in string. If I write numbers, it's also a string because doesn't care. Whatever you write, input always returns string. If you want to convert it to integer, you can just say the number is integer of number. It simply says that you need to convert number to integer and put it inside number. So number is integer from this now on. If you pass this line, your number is an integer. So if I rerun it, I enter some number, this is gonna be a class of integer, not a string. So this is data type conversion, and printing and outputting in Python. So what happens if I write something that is not a number? For example, I write my name like Siavush. Yep, we have a error here which says value error, invalid literal for integer with base 10. Simply says this is not a number of base 10. Is it? No, it isn't. So we are not gonna talk about error handling right now, but there are some ways to prevent this error. And you notice that when we hit this error, we hadn't that print line. So error are important, because if you hit an error, you just can't go from that line above. Your script kind of fails to run. So let's write the number proper way. So that's a class of integer. Right now we don't need this print. If you can recall, we had an algorithm a few episodes back which we talked about. I believe it was your homework. Get age from user and say, are you okay to drink or not? If you were above 21, you will be okay, but less than that, in some culture, it wasn't okay. Let's rename it to age. Enter your age, and this would be age. You could just simplify that by getting input and convert it to integer, and then name it as age. So this would be much simpler and shorter, and I use this a lot actually. So yeah, I'm gonna say if age is greater or equal to 21, and then in Python means these two columns and your next line. If it was that, print you can drink as much as you desire. But if it wasn't, what should I do otherwise? You can just leave it here. It says, if I write my age, which is 25, it says you can drink as much as you desire, because I wrote that. If age was greater than 21, just say you are okay to do it. But if it wasn't, you can say if age is less than 21, print you are too young to drink yet. So if my age were 18, I was too young. But if I was 22, it was okay. But it was 21, also okay. 20, too young, and like that. So basically I write whatever I want, but I write the opposite down here for the opposite scenario. You can just simply replace that with else, any else after if or elif, we're gonna talk about elif later, is the opposite condition. It says if it was true, do that, otherwise do that. This otherwise you don't have to write the condition itself like I did here. You can just simply replace it with else and it does the same. If I was 20 young, I was okay. If I was 20, I was too young to drink. This is the simple thing you do, but you might notice this spacing here. It called an indent, which Python is strictly looking for them. It's very important matter in Python. This spacing mean the print command is inside the if. If it wasn't there, it was just, that's a syntax error, which is right here, because after if and before else there cannot be a print. But if let's do this, I just bring it back here. So basically the else started but never finished. It doesn't know its scope and its limits, and the printing this is not true, this is not fine, because the else is empty. If something is empty, you can just ignore it and do not write it. But I want the else thing to be here, but the scope must be empty, so you can just pass. Yeah, I'm good, I pass. This is a simple empty block in Python. Pass. If this condition was true, do this, but else pass it. Never mind. So simply what I did is I brought the print and indent to left, which makes it work. If my age was 20, I were too young to drink, as the previous result. But if I was 21, wait for it, I can drink, but I am also too young. So basically, if you want to understand what's happening, if and else are now a block which can run independently, and after them, whatever happened, this print is going to execute it, because this is not a part of if or else. This is something like, if you hit yes or no, it doesn't matter, you're gonna reach this point. This is the print. It doesn't matter if it was true or false, you're gonna reach this line. So if you write something below 21, like 20, I read, it's gonna pass, so it doesn't do anything, and then prints this independent line, which I'm too young. But if you enter something greater than 21, so this block executes, and this line can be printed here, as you can see, and then this independent line also printed, because this is not a part of if else block. So if you want to bring it under the else, you can just simply hit tab, and it goes one indent inside. And now if I write 20, I'm too young, and if I write 21, I can drink without any interruption. So I can just delete this pass, and this is a simple definition of that algorithm that we wrote the other day. I believe we didn't write that. That was your homework. Yeah. So let's talk about being odd or even. Get a number and tell it's odd or even. So enter a number, and that's gonna be n. If n divided by 2, which this operand gives us the reminding of the division. So we're gonna say divide n by 2, but give us the remainder. If the remainder was 0, then the number is even, print even. But otherwise the number is odd, just write odd. Yeah, enter a number like 3 is odd, 1 is odd, 2 is even, whatever, right? It doesn't matter, you just can a huge number, it's gonna work, because the number doesn't matter, it's just a number. An algorithm actually matters in that point, because an algorithm is a solution to a problem that has no specific things. We don't know what n might be, but we know that we can find it's even or not following this algorithm. So that was the definition of if a number is odd or even, but this flowchart here shows odd and even numbers from 1 up to 100. So let's write this. It starts with n is equal to 1 and it has no input. I'm gonna say n is equal to 1. That's it. And then it checks if a number has a remainder dividing by 2. So if n mod 2 equals to 0, and then print even, otherwise print odd. So else print odd. But regardless of we hit this section or that section, we're gonna follow and we're gonna continue, and we reach another if. So I write another if, which is if n is less than 100, n is less than 100, then n equals to n plus 1, which might be a bit confusing, but it simply says increment n by 1 unit and then replace it with your n. If your n were, for example, 5, this section would be 6, because 5 plus 1 is 6 and n is 6 from now on. Your n were 5 and it become 6. It's 1 unit incrementation. You can just simply write this. But otherwise it says finish, but we don't have to write finish, so that's it. But after incrementing, I'm gonna keep this intent because I'm still in this if block. It says go to somewhere like that, but go to is not a command in Python. So what's the solution here? How could I get back? We cannot just say go to this line, because there is no way, there is no command for it. I said that's a loop. Loops are made of 2 parts. One part is the instruction sent, but the other part is the while keyword and the condition. So we can just use while n is less than 100, do all of this. Okay, so while it was true, we need to follow this path. The first thing we do is incrementing n, so that needs to go up. While it was true, we increment n, and then we check for if it's odd or even, and then we're gonna check the condition, and yeah, that's the loop. So we need to write this while n is less than 100, which at the beginning is, because n is 1 and 1 is less than 100, but it immediately incremented, so the algorithm starts with 2 actually, because it's n is 1 is less than 100, so we add something to it, it goes up to 2, and 2 is even, so the first output is even if we go up, not odd. So simply we can start with 0 and then we add something to it, and our first thing is odd, yes. But simply a lot of odds or even are not our desire. We want to add this number here, n, and then odd or even, or n and then odd. If we run it, we say 1 is odd, 2 is even, 3 is odd, 4 is even, and all the way up to 100. So that's our first code, which is made from this flowchart we wrote last session. I hope you learned something new and it was helpful for you. Keep it in mind that you have to work, you have to feel it in tip of your fingers. Just open this Visual Studio Code or whatever app you want to write Python code in that, and just simply write it. Just go with the flow. Just do not scare of writing code. What's the worst scenario? What are you afraid of? Nothing happens. You learn a ton doing those. So I hope you enjoyed it, and this is the end of this episode. So until next episode, take care.